2 children born 5 days apart. Same house. Same father. And the woman who had no idea was the man's own wife. Maria Shriver was not just any woman caught in a scandal. She was American royalty. The niece of President John F. Kennedy. The daughter of the woman who founded the Special Olympics. She had built her own name from scratch as a respected NBC journalist, covering wars, crises, and human tragedy, all while carrying one of the most famous surnames in American history. She did not ride her family's coattails. She earned her place. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the immigrant who conquered bodybuilding, then Hollywood. They met in 1977 at a charity tennis tournament. He was pure fire. She was old money Grace. Total opposites. And that was exactly the spark. They married in April 1986 in Hyannisport. The guest list read like a page from American history. Oprah, Andy Warhol, Diane Sawyer, Grace Jones performing at the reception. It looked like the beginning of something unbreakable. And for a long time, it did. But here's the thing about foundations. Cracks can form before the house is even finished. A year before the wedding, Arnold was filming in Italy. He was already engaged to Maria. And on that set, he started an affair with his co-star Brigitte Nielsen. It wasn't a single moment of weakness. It lasted through the entire production. Brigitte would later say she thought she had found the love of her life, not knowing he was already promised to someone else. Maria found out. And she married him anyway. She believed he had changed. She believed in the man who proposed to her, not the one who had spent that summer in Rome. That decision, that act of forgiveness, is the key to everything that followed. Because Arnold now knew exactly how much she was willing to overlook. The 4 children came quickly. Catherine in 89, Christina in 91, Patrick in 93, Christopher in 97. Maria eventually left NBC entirely when Arnold ran for governor of California in 2003. She became First Lady of the state, launched children's programs, championed Alzheimer's research, and stood beside him through every press conference and every rumor. From the outside, they were bulletproof. But what was happening behind closed doors would not stay hidden forever. Mildred Biner had worked in the Schwarzenegger home for 20 years. She helped raise their children. She attended family events. She was completely trusted. Sometime in late 1996, while Maria was pregnant with Christopher, Arnold began a physical relationship with her. And what came next was not an affair. It was a construction project. Arnold built an entire second life inside his own home and maintained it for over a decade. He quietly funneled money to Mildred. He set up trusts for their son, Joseph. He paid for Joseph's schooling. Months before the story broke, he bought Mildred a 4-bedroom house in Bakersfield, paid in full, $268,000 in cash. All of it kept off the books Maria ever saw. The affair had ended years earlier. But the lie kept going. Every single day. And then in 2003, something happened that tested just how far Maria would go to protect this marriage. 16 women came forward just days before the governor's election, alleging Arnold had groped and touched them inappropriately over the years. The Los Angeles Times ran the story. Maria stood at that podium beside him. She told the public to trust her judgment about her own husband. She put her credibility, her Kennedy name, on the line. And the entire time, Joseph was 6 years old, living 1 floor above her bedroom. She defended a man whose secrets had already grown beyond anything she could have imagined. As Joseph got older, Maria began to notice things she could not explain. The same jawline. The same build. The same features that had made Arnold one of the most recognizable faces on earth. Friends say she would watch Joseph at family events, then look at her husband, and feel something cold move through her chest. If you have ever looked at someone you trusted and felt that sick, sinking feeling, the one where your body understands something your mind is refusing to accept, then you already know exactly what those years felt like for her. She knew it the way a wife always knows. Small things. A look held a beat too long. A name spoken with too much warmth. A glance between Arnold and Mildred that didn't belong between an employer and his housekeeper. She knew it before she ever said it out loud. And when she finally did say it, all she got was confirmation. In early 2011, shortly after Arnold left office, they entered marriage counseling. Maria asked the question directly during one of those sessions. Arnold confirmed it. In his memoir, he described that moment as the worst of his life, like dropping a stone he had been holding above her head for 14 years. What he didn't say was that the stone had already fallen. He just hadn't told her yet. On May 17, 2011, the Los Angeles Times published the story. Within hours, it was everywhere. And Maria Shriver, a woman who had sat across from world leaders, moderated presidential debates, and stood at her uncle's grave on national television, had to walk through a wall of cameras while the world picked apart the most private corners of her life. She had to sit her children down and explain that their father had another son, that he had been there all along. Christopher, her youngest, was a teenager. The boy he had played with for 13 years turned out to be his blood. Now think about what it means to look back at 25 years of memories and realize every single one of them has been altered. Not just the hard years. The good ones too. In her 2025 book, she described that period as deep grief, brutal, terrifying, and physical. Not just heartbreak. Weight falling off. Sleepless nights. The sensation of grief sitting on her chest like something immovable. Betrayal at that scale doesn't stay in the heart. It moves into the bones. She described herself alone on a hotel bathroom floor in the dark, counting backward through 14 birthdays, counting forward through every meal Mildred had served them in their own home, and doing the math on the 5 days that separated 2 pregnancies. That is what this kind of betrayal actually looks like. Not the headlines. The bathroom floor, alone, in the dark. Maria filed for divorce on July 1, 2011. What followed was nearly a decade of quiet, complex negotiations. California is a community property state. Arnold's net worth sat north of $400 million. Real estate across the state, Terminator franchise residuals, investment portfolios, business interests built across 30 years. The settlement wasn't finalized until December 2021. By then, their oldest daughter Catherine was already married with children of her own. The divorce outlasted the scandal that caused it. But here is what surprised everyone. What Maria did next. She did not go to war. She didn't give a single interview designed to destroy him. She didn't write the tell-all the world was waiting for. She protected her children, quietly, consistently, and completely. She expanded her work in Alzheimer's research and women's health. She wrote books. She launched media projects. She built an identity that had absolutely nothing to do with being Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife. Arnold, for his part, has not stopped talking about what he did. In his memoir, in his Netflix documentary, he has called it the greatest personal failure of his life. He has admitted he was a far better actor and politician than he ever was a husband. Joseph, now in his late 20s, has built his own career in acting and bodybuilding. Arnold has publicly acknowledged him. But Maria is not looking backward. If you saw her at a public event today, you might not connect her to the woman who went through all of this. She is a best-selling author, a producer, an advocate, and a grandmother, through her daughter Catherine's marriage to Chris Pratt. On Oprah's podcast in 2025, she said simply, "I'm in a good place with Arnold, and that's really important to me." She never needed to say anything more than that. His own words, his own admissions, his own very public reckoning said everything she chose not to. 25 years of marriage. 4 children. A secret son who grew up in the same house. And a woman who chose to rebuild instead of burn it all down. She walked through the most public betrayal of her generation without ever raising her voice. And somehow, that quiet turned out to be the loudest thing she ever said.